Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And yes, we hear a lot of great things from agents. It's just getting the agents to try the application, and you'll never go back to manually filling these forms. They are a pain for all of us, but they are not going away, and they're only going to get or increase in workload. So we are here to streamline the process for you. I wish I can take all the credit. This was created by myself originally as a concept. In Winnipeg, we partnered with a development company, which we've now formed a company called Forward Form Solutions. For those of you who don't know, my name is Simon Fiore, and I'm a realtor by trade here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the idea man behind Fintracker. So recently we launched our 2.0, which has built out the new forms and added some new features that are going to help you identify physically present clients and non-physically present clients. We're bringing in a lot of other features, which we'll discuss shortly for the corporate world. I'm just sharing my screen. And like many of you, I was always chased by my brokerage to hand in my forms in order to complete the file. It is a requirement, but we need to make it a priority now. So it has to be done at the beginning of the transaction. You can call it a KYC, a know your client process. You don't have to call it a FinTrack screening process. We are not the police. We're just gathering information and letting our offices assess the risk. Many of you are probably taking pictures of your clients' IDs or photocopying them and having your admins fill it out. You should stop doing the photo taking anyway by storing it on your device without written consent or sharing it with Instagram and Facebook by allowing access to your photo library. God knows where these end up. So we got to stop that. And we have given you a tool to do the job effectively and efficiently. Once you download the application, by registering through the App Store, or you can go onto our website through your desktop, but we prefer you use your mobile device, iPad or a tablet, cell phone, Android, whatever you have. Go to your App Store, download the app, register. You'll be asked what board you belong to. Some boards are covering the cost. So if you're out east, many boards out east are covering the cost. If you're out west, we have yet to, the wave hasn't hit there yet, west of Manitoba. You'll register to your company. If your company is paying for it, it will be waived as well. We're going to be doing this on a trial with you guys, so we'll waive the subscriptions for now. Once you register, you'll be given a password. Reset it to a password that you'll remember, and then you can also add biometrics or a 4-digit PIN for an elevated feature of security. Once you're into the app, very simple. So as a commercial company, you have to identify the individuals acting on behalf of a corporation, or if the individual is making the purchase, you need to complete an individual identification. You would add individual ID, and instead of taking a photo, you would scan using your camera. We have some tips there. And you would scan the ID. If the ID is expired, it won't allow you to use it, or fraudulent. We detect these things. In the event that you're working with the client a second time or a third time, if the ID has expired, I should note, you can reuse it. But at the first time, first business transaction, that ID must be current. So asking for a current document, passport, Nexus card, international documents, as long as they're issued by a government and they have a watermark, a barcode, or encrypted data, we can scan it. If you're having issues, you can hit the help button within the app and send us a message, and we'll see if we can help you out. The information is extracted and populated to the CREA licensed FinTrack forms. This is a user-friendly version of it. You would then fill out occupation, and we can put call years for today, industry, real estate. Now you're probably wondering why there's 3 fields. On the individual ID form, the occupation is 1 field, but we have broken it up into 3 because the auditors during their examinations are asking for agents or the industry to elaborate on that field. So we've extended that into 3 pieces. Also, the auditors in the East are asking for the number with numerical and alphabetical soup in it. In the West, we've seen some examinators ask for the other number. We extract both. Once you scan, fill the occupation, you can hit OK and carry on with your transaction if you're looking for a shortcut. So that replaces you taking a photo or sending it to your admin to fill out, which some agents do. If you want to complete the transaction in full, just carry on, select buyer or seller. If your client is asking why you need to identify them, you can send them an email and we'll provide a full disclosure there with a link to the Fintrack website explaining why it's required by law. A map widget. Instead of abbreviating and missing postal codes where you will be fined on these through an examination, you can just enter an address and we'll populate it all. Make sure the postal code is there in full. There are some postal codes that do not complete, so you'll have a hard time submitting that. You can set that as the address. It knows it's a government issued ID. If you're following the dual ID process or the credit file, you can select those and we'll open up the mandatory fields for those processes. Majority of the time, you're going to be using a government issued photo ID, I hope. Moving on, there's all your information in the form. Select third party, no, in this case, Canadian citizen. Moving on to the business relationship. Every transaction must be treated as a business relationship now, not 2 or more in 5 years. It's every transaction. So complete this section. And business dealings, maybe he's an investor or she. Moving on, you're asking for a current document each time. You can select that. If your training manuals or office policies have something else that you're supposed to do to monitor the business relationship, because Fintrack now wants us to follow up with the clients and update their information at least annually. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but we're looking at building in an automatic email that'll be sent out from the close date and maybe asking a few questions on your behalf through the email that you've inputted up top at the disclosure field. But we have to be careful with Privacy Act there. So whatever training you have from your office on following up and monitoring that relationship, we spoke about it before, we're still all working towards figuring this out. And CREA is lobbying for us to try and limit the workload there. Politically exposed individuals. So that means a mayor or anybody higher than that, not a councillor, but a mayor or some diplomat or a minister of finance. That would be a politically exposed person, or if they're anyone close to them, like a wife or brother or sister, they would be politically exposed. You would have to select that and then complete the politically exposed form. In this case, we're going to select none of the above, which will be the most part. And well, how do we find out this information? We ask the individual. This is suffice for Fintrack, is asking verbally, are you politically exposed? Saving that, if you were to miss any fields, they would be in red and we would take you to the missing fields. So you can't submit a form without completing it. Very, very simple. Let's unselect that and we'll show you how that works. So it's foolproof to an extent. Now you want to add a receipt of funds, maybe. You can add a new record or another individual on the transaction. Those options are here. Let's go with a receipt of funds. Now it attaches the receipt of funds form to the transaction kit, auto-populating it with the transaction property address, your name, your brokerage, today's date. You're way ahead of the game. All you have to do is fill in missing blanks and check. In the event if it's a bank draft, we will remind you that Fintrack or our government requires the origins account number. So the bank draft number will only have the bank's account number. You would have to ask where are the funds being drawn from and ask for that information. You could enter that into account number 2 below. In most cases nowadays out east, they're doing wire transfers or direct deposits. So wire transfer would have a reference number. Purpose of deposit, commercial property. Reference number from the wire transfer could go in here. And then you would enter your account number on that ID. And we'll just use my name for now, RBC. Type of account, checkings. Save this to the transaction. Now maybe we want to add a corporate ID. Of course, we'll go into the corporate ID section. Right now, you're to fill this information in manually. We are working on bringing in a corporate search bar that would do those corporate searches for you. So maybe you have an admin doing these things for you now, or you do it yourself, but we're going to be bringing that feature in here. For now, you'll have to just fill it in. And we've attached, as you can see, the receipt of funds and the individual ID that is involved with this transaction to the whole kit. And you would fill out all of these. And the beneficial ownership part, which is new. For those of you who don't know, the beneficial ownership is somebody who owns 25% or more. We have found a resource to for ultimate beneficial ownership that we're also going to be bringing in. These are going to be in-app purchases, either paid directly through the app to the individual or to the company. We're working on that right now. For now, continue doing what your office systems are. Once you submit, you'll be asked to select a recipient. If you're set up on the back end, which I think we're going to do, it'll be there by default. You can select it and the forms will go to your office. What do those forms look like? Again, these are not stored in my device. Just the name is there, and you would recall it from our secured server in Canada with Microsoft Azure, and we would bring that through the cloud using encrypted data to your device. This is one of our test subjects. And then the form would be auto-populated onto the CREA license form, legible, fully complete, and meeting all the guidelines. And from here, if you're handling the transaction all the way yourself, you could upload this to a document management system, or you can print it, whatever you'd like to do, but you've already submitted it at this stage to your office. When working with the client, again, you simply find that, search the name in the search bar under completed forms, of course, otherwise it would just be in your incompleted. You can select that and you can edit a copy, which would remove the transaction property address and obviously ask you to fill out a new transaction property address, make sure all the information is updated, and submit the form without having to bother your clients again. You can edit in place, meaning if your office sees that there's a deficiency they want changed, you could edit it and resubmit the same form. So that's a search previous option for reuse. You can delete transactions that maybe didn't materialize. You should be submitting records for all attempted real estate deals. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't express that. So attempted means voided, declined, or accepted offers should be recorded under Fintrack guidelines. We'll leave that to you guys. We have the ability to delete here. Now, one of our features coming out that we were working on specifically for this group, currently for non-physically present clients, you can have document in your training manuals or office policies that you have a FaceTime to verify that that's them. Ask the client to take a photo of the barcode from about 10 to 12 inches away from the camera. Otherwise, it pixelates. Send that barcode to you. You could then select new individual ID, scan from photo library, select the ID, and it would scan from the image. That is how we're doing non-physically present identification now. Coming down the pipe, we're working on a new piece that you would send the link to the client. Sorry, my session has expired. Give me 1 second. And the client would receive this link. They would have to agree to the terms, select the country they're in or province, or select the type of ID. And then they would have to agree to allow access to their camera. They would then scan their front of the ID, scan the back of their ID, and then take their facial biometrics after agreeing to the terms. If your client doesn't want to do this, you can opt to do the other non-physically present version of authenticating and validating the document. We see this as being forward-thinking in a sense where maybe the client can handle all of the Fintrack forms in the future with a few due diligence steps that you would have to take. There's a tutorial on here that shows the clients, they have to agree to the terms and privacy policy. And there's a tutorial here that shows the clients how to scan their biometrics in order for us to compare it and then send you a full report, which we would attach to the transaction kit. That's coming soon, along with those search fields for PEPs, HIOs, politically exposed, head of international organizations, beneficial ownership, corp, all those. We're looking to be a one-stop shop for the real estate industry. I think I've covered most of that. All these forms can be filled manually. In the event that you don't have an internet connection, I would recommend taking a photo of the back of the ID from 10 to 12 inches away and then scanning it when you're back in Wi-Fi zone. You can scan, set the occupation, and send that to your admin where they can log in with your username and password and fill these forms out for you. But we highly recommend that you, the individual identifying the client, ask those questions and use this process as a know your client process. It doesn't have to be policing or screening. So asking someone what they do for a living or if they're acting on behalf of a third party, these are questions we have to ask. You should ask them in person, complete the transaction, and we've helped you do this in under a minute. You can send it away and move on with your job at hand. I think that covers it unless we get into detail and overwhelm you guys. So we hope that you embrace this application and help us with this trial. Download the app, send us feedback. Let us know if you have any suggestions moving forward. We do take that feedback, table it, and this was built by realtors for realtors. So your feedback does count.